cynicism is gone.
Hello everyone, Joshua Myers here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Terror Train from 1980.
Century Fox invites you to join the boys and girls of Sigma Phi for their annual New Year's Eve party. This year it's a masquerade on wheels, and the person behind you could be your best friend or the last person you see on Earth. Experience the most terrifying ride of your life on the Terror Train, rated R.
Starts October 3rd at a selected theater near you.
Terror Train stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Ben Johnson, and is directed by Roger Spottiswoode. I don't know. I tried to get my Echo Dot to basically be like, because I can't pronounce the guy's last name. I'll put his name in here or in the description box down below. If I completely butcher that name, which I think I'm 100% certain I completely butchered that name. Sorry, I tried not to. The plot of Terror Train is that a killer boards a conductor's train for a fraternity costume party featuring a magic act. Now, before I get into this review, I would like to say that this is a first time watch for me. I've never seen Terror Train. This was my first time watch. I've seen one of Jamie Lee Curtis's other horror films that she did during the 80s, and that was Prom Night. I had a little bit of an idea of what I was getting into. I know this was during one of the 80s slasher craze and everything like that. This was one of those films I was trying to, just like Prom Night, try to be one of those horror movies trying to capitalize off the success of Halloween and everything, in a sense trying to rip off Halloween. Kind of like, again, Prom Night, Friday the 13th, all that sort of stuff. And the only other thing I knew about it was Jamie Lee Curtis was in it. This was like, again, there was only two of the Halloween ripoffs during the 80s that actually featured Scream Queen Jamie Lee Curtis, you know, and that's Prom Night and Terror Train. In fact, I think both of them came out the same year, so she starred in two ripoffs of Halloween. So that's all I know about it. I don't know of any of the other actors, because I haven't really seen them enough or stuff or anything like that. Yeah, I went in this completely blind, and I do got some thoughts, so let's get right into it. I only got a couple positives. One of the positives I definitely have is, honestly, I kind of dig the setting of this kind of fraternity costume party on a train, you know, and the killer's on board and everything like that. I kind of dig the setting. It's a little bit different. I haven't really, you know, so I kind of dig it. I dig the setting a little bit. And it could make for, if done right, the setting could be a very claustrophobic, you know, tension-filled movie. Personally, don't think they really did that, but we'll get to that when we get to that. The other thing I liked, I kind of like the idea of this killer who who's on the train and that, but basically the killer would swap costumes and everything. In fact, he starts off with a costume that honestly is probably so far my favorite costume out of this movie, actually. It is honestly my favorite costume, and that's the one where it's like the old man with the glasses and the mustache and that. That's probably my favorite costume that this killer dons. I mean, some of the acting is decent. Of course, Jamie Lee Curtis is decent, because we all know she's a good actor in that, so. All the other ones are, okay, some of them range from decent to, again, we'll talk about in my negatives. Oh, I actually did like one character in specific. I actually liked the main conductor on this train, portrayed by Ben Johnson. I've never seen Ben Johnson in any other work. I don't even know what else he's done, but I really liked his character. He was probably the most likable character out of this entire movie, and I was actually kind of invested in that character. Other than that, that's really about it for this movie. So I guess we'll move on to my negatives, which I do got quite a bit. Hang on to your butts. Now, before I get on to my negatives, let me just jump off right at the bat saying I don't like this movie. In fact, I was kind of not really sure whether to consider it a decent movie or a bad movie. And personally for me, this is one of those bad, cheap, generic slasher films that came out during the 1980s. And it was, and the reason it was bad, and this is my main complaint with Terror Train, is I found it boring. I mean, again, I know they're trying to build suspense, I know they're trying to build tension, but you also have to build characters that you actually could latch onto, and characters that are interesting enough to, you know, watch throughout an hour and a half movie, and they really don't do that. I mean, sure, they got Jamie Lee Curtis in here, but they only really got her because of the fact she was in Halloween, you know, and the one thing that Halloween did differently that, you know, Terror Train seemed to kind of forgot is that, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis was a pretty likable character and everything, and there's some of that likability in this film a little bit, but not by much. I didn't even give a single crap about Jamie Lee Curtis or any of these other frat house, you know, college kids, I didn't at all. Yeah, again, the only character I really latched onto and liked was the conductor, portrayed by Ben Johnson. That's the only character I really latched onto, and even then, it's like he's still kind of a generic character, but nowhere near as generic as the other characters. You know, all of them just seem like cannon fodder, and for the killer to pick off one by one. And the reason and here's the thing, this movie was bad to the point where I didn't watch all the way through it. Now, it's not bad like with Sleepaway Camp or anything like that, where I felt like it was so bad because of all the kind of like very vile things in the movie. But this is bad in this way that's boring. You know, it's so bad it's boring. And I just, you know, when I go into a movie, any kind of movie, even if it's a horror film, I want to be at least entertained. So even if a film is bad, but it entertains me, that gets an additional star right there. If you can entertain me at the very least, your film automatically gets a star, even if your movie is bad. You know, like additional star from what I would have initially rated you. So, but this film really doesn't do it. It was actually it was pretty much a snores fest throughout the entire movie. I really tried to watch it all the way through, but honestly, it's just boring. It's so boring. It felt like a chore getting through because, you know, and to me that's not really fun, you know? And again, I didn't like any of the characters that were present. I didn't like any of even like the gore effects and everything while they're fine, they're serviceable for this kind of movie, they're not really interesting. I mean, if you're going to be a bad horror film, at least bring out some interesting kills and stuff like that to keep me entertained. You know, I mean, again, something like Sleepwalkers. Sleepwalkers was a really bad horror movie. But it was so damn entertaining because of all the ridiculous stuff that was in the movie. You know, like you got like the whole cop. Like I could just even say one of the ridiculous things in Sleepwalkers, and that'd be like, okay, now that looks like fun. And that's there's a cop with a cat in his car. A cop with a cat in the car. And that's not even scratching like the surface of how ridiculous Sleepwalkers get. This movie, like Terror Train on the other hand, is just boring. It's just boring. It's an hour and a half of nothingness. And knowing that too, because it follows the template of a slasher movies during the 80s, I already know what's going to happen. Most of them are going to get picked off one by one. I already know who is going to survive at the end. And that's Jamie Lee Curtis, because she's a big star, and that at the time she was the Scream Queen, so of course she was going to live at the end. She lived at the end of like one of the other movies I covered during this 31 Days of Halloween review series, and that was Prom Night, so she lived at the end of that. And she lives, I'm guaranteeing she lives at the end of this movie. but I'm not invested enough to check it out and see if I'm right on that because I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit whether or not Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie survives. I don't care if she dies. I don't care if any of these characters live or die, aside from, again, the main conductor played by Ben Johnson. He was the only character I even remotely gave a crap about. So, yeah, I don't like Terror Train. I really don't. It's... Personally, if you ask me, out of like the two Jamie Lee Curtis horror films that came out during the 80s, and especially the year 1980, I'm going to have to give it to Prom Night. I like Prom Night more than Terror Train, actually. You know, and I had some issues with that, but at least like it's a decent time, actually, you know, and there's some fun moments in it. So yeah, I honestly wouldn't really recommend Terror Train, actually. If you were to ask me, like if you were one of my friends and you were to ask me like let's say if you were Josh and you were to ask me, hey buddy, hey Josh, so what horror movies would you recommend me? You know, especially from the 1980s, because me and Josh were watching the In Search of Darkness documentaries and that, so it's like, because we were watching those two documentaries and that, so which ones that they didn't 100% cover on that you would personally recommend me? One of those I would not recommend to him or anybody else who are remotely interested in horror during the 1980s is Terror Train. I wouldn't recommend it. It's boring. It's boring as hell. It's not, again, you know, at the very least, you could be, at least be entertaining. You could be bad, but as long as you're entertaining, that's okay in my books. You know, that's okay in my books, you know? Sure, would I prefer more effort be put into stuff and everything like that, and have it be like 5 out of 5 star worthy film like The Shining or The Thing, which I'll cover those again. Like, I already reviewed both those movies, but I plan on re-reviewing them because they're pretty old reviews, so. I mean, again, Sleepwalkers isn't anything like that, but at the same time too, it was, like, again, that's another movie I'm probably going to have to re-review, but at the time, I gave it that rating because of the fact that it was so batshit crazy that was entertaining. I felt like I paid my money's worth with that Stephen King set, you know, just right there. Would I recommend Terror Train again? No, I would not recommend Terror Train. Would I rewatch Terror Train? Probably not, actually. I have no interest or desire to ever rewatch this movie. Not even to the point where it's like, to be like, you know what, I want to have my friends sit down and watch Terror Train, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I personally don't like Terror Train. It sucks. I completely forgot to go over my rating, so it's, because I was going a bit on a tangent there, so it's, move on to my rating of this stinker. So with that said, I'm going to give Terror Train a 2 out of 5 stars. Yeah, not great. Not great at all. Now, again, I'm a part of the Facebook group Killer Flicks, which was created by Lee McCoy, aka Drum Dums, the channel Drum Dums and that. And I'm not sure what all of your guys' thoughts are on this movie, because I really don't hear anything, like, I don't hear any of you guys speak about Terror Train whatsoever in your group, like in the group. I'm not sure if there's a lot of you guys that love Terror Train, and if you do, remember, this is just my opinion, you know? Doesn't make my opinion right, doesn't make your opinions wrong either, you know? So, and honestly, I hate the fact that us movie reviewers have to basically state that, because that should be something that should be completely obvious. Yeah, Terror Train. Don't like it. It fucking sucks. It fucking sucks. So what else can I say about it? Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.